So we are at Townie Meeting 15th, our 15th annual Townie Meeting in Las Vegas, and I ran into Derek Nordstrom. How are you, Derek?
Very well, Howard. Thank you.
And we were talking, and he's got an amazing story, and I thought, dude, I want to pull you over here, and let's talk about it. Dr. Nordstrom graduated from dental school in 2005 and worked as an associate dentist for 2 years in Whitehorse, Yukon. He then moved back home to Alberta and purchased an existing rural dental practice in Wainwright, Alberta, population 6,600. In 2014, Dr. Nordstrom started a new practice in Rimbey, Alberta, population 2,400, and transitioned from a sole practitioner model to hiring multiple associates to help carry the load at both practices. He currently works 5 days per week, split between both clinics, while concurrently mentoring and overseeing 3 full-time associate dentists. He practices a wide range of dentistry, including restorative, endodontics, prosthodontics, and orthodontics, while he quite enjoys clinical dentistry and is extremely serious about providing quality, cost-effective dental care for his patients. He is most passionate about the business of dentistry. He's extremely thankful for his wonderful staff, his beautiful wife, Angela, and his awesome children, Truman and Lucia. You just celebrated your 10-year anniversary with Angela.
Yeah, thank you. I did. That's correct. Yeah, it's our 10-year anniversary this year. It's our first child-free trip together in over 4 years. So my wife is lounging by the pool, and very excited to be here. So.
Well, that's awesome. I always tell those young kids, never take your marriage for granted. So you're in rural. Okay, so you're in Canada and you're in rural.
I am, yes.
It seems like the dental student disease is they want to go to, Toronto, Montreal, British, the Vancouver, British Columbia. They want to go big cities.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a better business environment in rural than urban?
I certainly do. I graduated in 2005, and there were 40 people in my class, and 36 of them went to the city. 4 of us left the city for a rural environment.
Do they all go to the same city?
Usually Edmonton or Calgary split, but only
at Edmonton and Calgary.
Yeah, for Alberta, they're the 2 big ones. But
and then 4 went rural.
Yeah.
And are those 4 doing better than the 36 that went to Edmonton and Calgary?
Oh, I haven't taken a survey of them, but from my own anecdotal evidence, I think rural, clearly supply and demand is in our favor.
Right.
I think for a lot of people that are from the cities, moving rural is kind of like moving to the moon.
Well, was your girl, Angela?
Yeah.
Was she from a town of 5,000? Or, were you able to get a girl to go from Calgary and Edmonton to a town of 6,000? Or do you have to find a girl in a town of 6,000?
Well, I think that's a very astute comment, because not only does the dentist need to want to work rural, but their spouse, male or female, also needs to be there as well, or want to be there. I think a lot of people move to a small town and their spouse doesn't like it, and then they end up having to move because it's your job or your marriage. But I was very fortunate and blessed that my wife is from Rimbey, the small town that we opened our second clinic at, because with our children, we wanted to be closer to her family, just to help raise our children. So that's why I opened a second clinic in another small town.
So is John Cougar Mellencamp in his song Small Town, is he your favorite musical artist?
That's actually on my super awesome playlist that I do listen to.
What do you like better, Small Town or Little Pink Houses?
They're both pretty good, Howard. I'd probably go Small Town though.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in California. There's 5 dental schools.
It's a great life,
and everybody wants to open up a dental office that looks over the ocean.
Yeah.
And then they're practicing with one dentist for every 500 people.
Yeah, I like to say, if you open a clinic in a city, you're really, it's a race to the bottom. Your competitive advantage immediately starting out is your hours of availability, right? You got to be open 7 days a week, 8 to 8, 12 hours a day. You need 3 dentists to staff a clinic like that. It's just simply not doable for a sole dentist to do it, and you're competing on availability. You're not competing on quality. It's just tough, right? So you open a new clinic in the city, and you got to be there 12 hours a day. You need multiple dentists doing it. Nobody's busy. They're all working part-time at other clinics, trying to piece together enough money to keep the practice going. My advice would be go where there's lots of patients, and underserved markets are rural right now.
Okay, so if you're from New York or LA, you don't really get this, but when you go to a rural city of say 5,000, or you're in a town of 6,800?
Yeah, 66 in Wainwright and 24 in Rimbey.
Okay, so for the 2,400 in Rimbey,
yeah,
Is your total draw only those 2,400 people, or do they actually, or is that draw from a 20, 30-minute drive outside? How big is the actual, what's the rule of thumb for?
When I opened my practice in Rimbey, this really became quite apparent with me opening a new business, because in Wainwright I bought an existing business, which I would recommend for any new dentist. Don't open a new one. But I had the financial backing of a successful practice to open a new one, so this was a new experience for me. But the Town of Rimbey's website says the drawing area is 12,000 people. That's about a 20-minute drive, okay? If you're gonna go for groceries or coffee or to the hardware store, you know, you go about 15, 20 minutes. That's reasonable. That's a drawing area because you're doing it on a weekly basis. But dentists are unique, right? People only go to the dentist once a year, twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. If they hear of a dentist that they had a good experience, their brother had a good experience, or their cousin or their friend or their coworker, and said, you know, this guy Nordstrom in Rimbey is really good. I really had a great experience. I trust him. I like him. People will drive an hour to see you. That's reasonable. They'll drive an hour to go see somebody once or twice a year for something they don't like dentistry, because they heard you're good. No one's going to drive an hour because they heard the hardware store is awesome to get a bolt or something. So your drawing area, what for different services might only be 15, 20-minute drive, is now an hour. So your drawing area in a rural area is much, much bigger than it says on the municipality's website.
You graduated in 2005?
That's correct.
A lot of people coming out in 2017 say they think they're scared to open up their own business because they think corporate's going to come in and run them out of business. Are you afraid of corporate dentistry in Canada?
Not at all, no. My brother actually opened a clinic. He bought an established clinic in another small town. Both my brothers are dentists, Patrick and Travis. There's 3.
Patrick and Travis. That sounds like Irish Catholics.
Well, we're not Irish or Catholic. But, I am Christian. Anyways, my brother phoned me. He bought this new clinic, and one of the local chain dentists bought the other clinic in town. The 2 old dentists, been there forever. He bought one. This chain dentist from Calgary bought the other, and he phoned me and he's scared. He's like, what's going to happen? I said, Pat, don't worry. This is the best thing that could have happened to you. They're going to send in new grads for a week or 2 at a time. They won't like it, or they're just on rotation because they're not making enough money in Calgary. Every year, those patients will go there. They'll see a new dentist. It'll be a different face every time they go. They'll get sick of being told different things from different people, not to mention the staff probably will all quit. And they're going to come to you because you're a local guy in the community. Your kids go to school there. You support the community. You're going to be there every year. I said you should be far more afraid if some local football hero went to dental school and came back and his wife was the cheerleader and they settled in the same town. That would be far worse. I personally am not afraid of corporate dentistry. I think it's great to have competition.
Well, how long ago did that happen to your brother?
That was about 4 or 5 years ago. He's doing extremely well.
So, and what you predicted about corporate, is that what happened?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. I just think that patients want a dentist that they see every year, the same person, they trust, with integrity. And
I would fear setting up across the street from you, a guy who's in it for the long hauls, wife and kids live, just everything you just said.
Yeah.
That's what I'd fear. Corporate dentistry, I mean, in Phoenix, they come in and say, every time I go there, it's a different dentist. Mm-hmm. And every time I go in there, it's a $6,500 treatment plan. Have you ever gotten any of those?
Yeah.
They said I needed $6,000 worth of work, and then they give you the treatment plan. And I think that's I wish every dentist in my 5-mile radius was a corporate chain.
I agree with you entirely. I've got 3 associates working for me now, and I equate it to, I always tell them, I say, look, you're playing the long game. We're not playing the short game. Patients, when they come in, they will come to you until you piss them off. And they'll be your patient for the rest of their life. You just got to treat them with respect, treat them with integrity, be honest with them, provide, recourse. If your work fails, you fix it for free. Don't oversell them on stuff. You're playing the long game. I think corporate dentistry is very much the short game. People come in, they've never seen you. The dentist, you don't know who the dentist is. They don't spend any time with you, and they give you this huge recommended treatment for work that may or may not need to be done. And even if it might, be recommended to be done, it could be done later or split into multiple treatments over many years. They're just trying to get as much money out of the patient as they can because they know they probably won't be back again. Because they're going to go to the guy that's in the community, whose kids go to school there, who's going to be there for 30 years.
Yeah, and it's always the same thing. It's like, well, you need these 6 crowns because all these fillings are old. What do you say when they come in with a second opinion? They're asking about, okay, he wanted to crown 6 of my molars because all their fillings are old, and that's a lot of money. What do you say to that?
Well, I think it's very important you treat the patient with respect. And first of all, you don't want to lie to the patient and say you're fine if they have cavities. You need to tell them what's going on in their mouth. But crowning big fillings, if we could snap our fingers and do crowns for free and guarantee they wouldn't need root canals, it's a fine idea. But if the patient says, I've had these fillings for 35 years, they're fine, I'd say, great. I'd probably say, if a cusp breaks in a year or two and it starts to bother you, a crown is going to be needed. And then you warn them that's going to happen, and you're going to see them every year because you're in this for the long game. 5 years from now, the old farmer walks back in. He hasn't been in since, and he says, oh, you're right. You told me that tooth might break. It broke. It's catching food. It's kind of sensitive. I think we should crown it. You did warn me about it. But you're still here 5 years from now, and they trust you. So you will be that old farmer's dentist when he comes in every 5 years for a broken tooth because you're doing, honest work for him because that's what he needs now. But he didn't need 8 crowns 5 years ago when he came in to see you first because his big fillings were fine.
A consumer knows what an iPhone is, and it trusts Apple. It knows what a Dairy Queen Oreo Blizzard is, and it trusts DQ. Most everything consumers buy, they know what it is. But healthcare is invisible. I mean, if I go to you, it seems like if I go to 6 different dentists, I get 6 different treatment plans. So you're in a situation where you have 3 associates.
Yes.
How do you get 4 dentists on the same page? How do you? The joke is it's not actually a joke. So Reader's Digest took study models and FMX. They went to 30 different dentists and got 30 different treatment plans. Yeah. The government, the NIDR was actually wanted to know, is this sensationalism or is it true? So they did it to 100. They had 2 treatment plans the same, which said you need nothing. And then treatment plan 3 to 100 were all different.
Yeah.
That's weird. How do you get 3 dentists on the same page when you have 3 associates and yourself? How do you get 4 dentists on the same page so that they don't hear something different from every one of them?
You got to spend the time and mentor them. I mean, I prefer, when I look for associates, I love hiring new grads. I put in my advertisement, new grads preferred. Please call me if you're still in dental school because I want to mentor you to teach you to think how I think. So when a new grad starts with me, as opposed to a 10 or 15-year-old dentist that you hire that might say, just stay out of my way, I'm going to produce lots for you. It's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for someone to keep the chair warm and the production as high as possible. I always tell the new grads, when they start with me, and I've been very fortunate to have really good new grads work for me. My dentists are awesome now. I love them. I couldn't run my business without them. But I always tell them, worry about the dentistry and the money will follow, right? We're all concerned about money. I love making money, right? That's what it's about at the end of the day. But if they come in and they say, how much do I make every month? How much is this procedure? I want to make money. I tell them you got to focus on the dentistry, and that starts on day 1 with they do their first exam. It starts with me. A new grad comes in their very first day. I have a list of things I want to go over for an exam. You walk in, you introduce yourself, you do the existing other treatment or existing other fillings, you chart the missing teeth, you go to the caries and find the caries, then you talk about emergency treatment, then there's functional treatment, then there's ideal treatment, then there's aesthetics. Last of all, you don't walk in and say you need 6 veneers. I mean, that might be a standard response in a corporate dentistry environment, like selling aesthetics, right? But I honestly don't like doing aesthetics. You're an armchair psychologist for a lot of it, right? So I guess, how do you get 3 or 4 dentists on the same page? Time and conversation. Consistent feedback.
Because
you can't hire a new dentist and turn them loose and never be there watching.
Yeah, a lot of the younger dentists says it's hard for them to find a job because everybody wants to have 5 years experience.
Unless they go rural.
Yeah.
If you live 2 hours from the city, it's not hard to find a job. I know rural dentists that are begging for associates. They're just 2 hours from a major center. They just, they can't find people, or they find somebody and they're single and they can't find a boyfriend or girlfriend in the town, and they move back to the city too. So your first comment's very astute. You need to have a partner that's
I don't know. I don't know. I still think them small town girls are the best. I do. I mean,
well, I'm biased, but
I was married for 20 years
one.
to a girl from a town of 5,000.
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing. And that's why I always tell people when celebrating their 10, mine fell apart at 20. And so it's never in the bag. But so another thing, they come out of school. Here's one of the big complaints. Every graduate going back to the first dental school in 1885 in University of Baltimore comes out of school and says, man, they didn't teach me nothing. We didn't do any Invisalign. We didn't place an implant. We didn't do sleep apnea. We didn't do anything. But they got a bunch of student loans. And you're actually looking for young dentists.
Yes.
Do you want them to start learning things they didn't learn in dental school, like placing implants, like doing Invisalign, like sleep apnea, like what do you want them to learn and get good at? What should they learn how to supply that people are demanding, and that they can do supply and demand and make a good business and pay back their student loans, versus what is not so much of a return on investment and is wasting a lot of money?
I think the statement that a dental degree is simply a license to learn would apply. I actually learn a lot from my new grads, because it's been 15 years since I went to dental school the first year or two. Pathology, newer techniques and materials, they bring a lot of knowledge that I learned, but I feel that new grads, what they don't know is how to actually run a day of clinical practice and private practice environment. They're used to a 3-hour appointment for one patient, when after they're done they go for lunch, and then they got lectures in the afternoon. I feel that the thing new grads really need mentorship. It's not so much how to do a filling. I mean, hopefully you can do a filling with good margins, good contacts the first day after dental school, but it's how do you talk to people? How do you do an exam and listen to the patient, not talk down to them? Find out what the patient wants, right? You want to do what the patient wants, and new grads just don't have the experience, and I certainly didn't either. I learned I had a great mentor. My father was a dentist. I spoke to him every day of the week.
Your dad's a dentist, and your two brothers are dentists?
Yeah, three of us are dentists.
So your dad had, how many kids did he have?
4.
4, all boys, all girls?
My sister wants nothing to do with dentistry.
So your dad's a dentist, had 3 boys and a daughter, and the 3 boys are all dentists?
Yes, we all went to the same dental.
That is so cool.
Yeah, but I think new grads, they need a mentor to teach them how to just run a practice with just what's the word I'm looking for? Not honesty or integrity. I mean, that implies they're not honest or integrous, but just how to run a business so that patients are treated properly and they want to come back. Because one of the problems that I had when I started is you don't have the experience either to know maybe what the right answer is, because experience is gained through time and making mistakes, right? But you sit down and you just start talking, and you don't really know what the answer is, so you talk instead of asking the patient, what do you want here, right? You see a broken cusp and you go, oh, you have a broken cusp, oh, we should probably fill that, but that filling might break, so then maybe we should do a crown, but if we crown it might need a root canal, so maybe we should do a root canal and a crown on that tooth. Now the patient's like, what are you talking about? You said a filling, now a root canal, now a crown. Instead of saying to the patient, oh, I see you have a broken tooth. What's going on there? How long has it been broken? And they say, no, it's been broken for 5 years. It doesn't bug me. And I say, oh, do you want to fix it? Not really. I say, great. Well, why don't we leave it? And if it breaks more and you start catching food or it hurts you, you'll need a crown. And then call me when that happens. Instead of the new grad, they know how to fix stuff. They see something broken and they want to fix it. But what's the right answer here? Is the right answer, we should sell this person a root canal and a crown immediately, or ask them what they want to do? If the patient comes in and says, I broke a tooth, I'm working right now, I've got insurance, I really want to fix it because I don't know if I'll have a job next year, you say, great, we should crown it then, I think that would be best. They'd say, great, that's what I want anyways. So that's the right answer. So it's teaching these new grads how to talk to people to find out what the patient wants, and that doesn't mean misleading them into what you really think you should do to them, because doing nothing, do no harm, is the overriding principle of medicine and dentistry. So whether it's physical harm or financial harm, is doing work on a cleanly broken cusp that's been broken for years, no caries, it's smooth, doesn't bother them at all, is fixing that the right answer? It depends on what the patient wants, in my opinion, and that's how you build trust with your patient, so they'll keep coming to you forever until you pee them off. So I think that's the biggest thing with new grads, is just teaching them how to deal with people to find out what they want. It's communication. It's all about communication.
So what procedures do you think sell? I mean, there's 4 dentistry deals. Did one of the 4 learn to place implants? Did one of them learn sleep apnea? Did one learn Invisalign? Did someone, what, or are you staying more basics? Fillings, crowns, root canals?
Yeah, I'm pretty basic, to tell you the truth. I got into implants in 2010, and I did 5 a year for a couple of years, and I kind of got out of it right when the CT scanners were coming in, because I didn't want to invest in it. And I thought that if you don't do something on a weekly basis,
absolutely,
it's not worth doing. If you're doing something every 3 months, like when I went to place an implant, my staff were freaking out. We booked off the whole morning. They didn't know what they needed. They had everything in the kitchen sink out. It took like 4 hours to place an implant. I know if we did one the next day, it would have been 3 hours, and the next day 2 hours, the next day 1 hour. But you don't do it for 6 months again. They just don't have any idea. So I actually sold all my stuff, because I think the standard of care is a CT scan. Clearly, I wouldn't get one without a 3D scan. And I didn't want to invest in that. I just wasn't doing enough of them. So I'm pretty bread and butter. I know
you're a pretty good businessman.
Well, yeah, I'm not.
I mean, I know dentists who
I don't make those decisions.
Bought a $100,000 CBCT, went to Dominican Republic and bought some hands-on, and bought a kit, and they had spent $200,000 before they placed one implant for $1,000.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, they hasn't placed 200 implants for that. I mean, they went $200,000 in a hole. And I show up 3 years later, they haven't even dug themselves out of a hole. Yeah. And then I see people who sit there and say, well, you know what? I know there's so much competition in Calgary and Alberta. I'm going to go up there and find a periodontist and say, you know what? I'm not going to invest $1. I'm going to load up all my implants on 1 day a month in this clinic and 1 day a month in this office, and I'll pay you half. So now they didn't invest a dime. And now the guy's coming in there and placing 4 or 5 implants a month, so that's $5,000, and they split the gate $2,500 each. Yeah. That's a return on asset. That's a return on equity. Yeah. In rural, same thing with orthodontists or endodontists or anything. I mean, it's hard to get someone to come in your office in the big city, but in rural all day long.
Well, I don't think you need an endodontist to come to your office in rural. I mean,
so you're doing all your molar endo?
Yeah.
So you're doing molar endo, fillings, crowns?
Yeah. You wrote a column a few months ago or a year ago about rural dentists just need to provide basically everything. I mean, I do molars, I do endos on second molars, I pull out wisdom teeth, any filling or crown or bridge work I basically do. I don't do full mouth reconstruction. I don't do implants. I don't even like restoring implants anymore. I used to send people for the implant and then I'd restore it. But honestly, I have an issue with if it fails, whose fault is it? It might become a blame game. Is it the guy that put the crown on or the guy that placed the implant?
Well,
so
I
think all in one for the implant is the way to go. Get someone to place it and restore it.
What I think is it's misdirected information. So they don't have their house in order on a hygienist, perio, cleaning, exams, x-rays, basic preventative dentistry, and restorative dentistry. They high overhead their house in order. So how are they going to solve it? Oh, by learning sleep apnea and implants and Invisalign. Dude, if you can't make money on a cleaning, exam, x-ray, filling, crown, and root canal, it's only going to get worse with implants and sleep apnea. You got to get your house in order. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree with that entirely because, if I don't really subscribe to how much do I produce an hour, what's my production breakdown. I don't worry about that. I look at the numbers at the end of the month and make sure I can, pay my bills, and I do very well. I worry about the dentistry first, right? I'm not obsessed with how much should we produce this hour. We got to, I think it makes the staff stressed out. But anyways, my clinic does 25% is hygiene, 25% is diagnostics, exam and x-ray. You're 50% of your billing right there, checkups and cleanings, and emergencies and, spec PAs or whatever.
So you're a quarter hygiene,
a quarter diagnostic, exam and x-ray,
quarter hygiene, a quarter exam and
radiography. So 50% of my income.
Wow. How many hygienists do you have? You have 3 associate dentists?
I have 5 hygienists.
So you have 2 locations.
2 locations,
5 hygienists.
Yeah.
3 associates.
Yeah. So one clinic I have I got 4 dental chairs and 2 hygiene in one office.
4 dental chairs, 2
my
hygiene.
established office. In my new office, I have 4 dental, 3 hygiene. I added 1 more hygiene for the new office.
The new office has 4 operatories and 3 are hygiene?
No, sorry, 4 dental, 3 hygiene. So the first office is 6.
The first office is 6 dental.
No, 4 dental, 6 total.
4 dental.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 dental and 2 hygiene.
And the new office is 4 dental, 3 hygiene.
So your first office is 6 chairs and your second office is 7 chairs.
Yeah.
And you're a quarter hygiene, a quarter examine radiography.
Then-
What would be the other half?
Mostly fillings and extractions.
Mostly fillings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another thing I don't understand about this. I
Endo
wrote an
is
article
endo
that
is
called
like 3 to 4%.
I wrote an article, Suck It Up Buttercups. There's a lot of millennials, girls and boys, they come out of school $350,000 in debt and they say, well, you know, I don't like blood.
Yeah.
I want to do the cosmetic dentistry, Invisalign, sleep apnea, all that stuff. I'm like, dude, why did you become a doctor on a human filled with blood? And I think the apical barbarians who like blood and guts extractions, root canals, implants, they do so much better than the people who say, I don't like blood, I just like the pretty fluffy stuff, and I just want to do bleaching, bonding of veneers. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Well, I think each has their place. I think if you're going to do rural, you have, even though the drawing area is bigger than you think, it's not, you don't have like 500,000 people as in a city or 1 million people to draw from. How many people in your small town have sleep apnea that want to pay you $1,000 for an appliance? 3? I mean, are you going to do that on a weekly basis? No. I mean, I've restored 6 or 8 maxillary anterior teeth with crowns and veneers several times. I just don't like doing it because I don't do it weekly. And like I said, you're an armchair psychologist. If you're not doing these high-end treatments on a weekly basis, you never get good at them. Your staff don't like it. What do you do on a weekly basis? You do fillings and you pull teeth and you do checkups and cleanings. And then you got to do root canals because people don't want to drive to the city. And you got to do crown and bridge. That's it.
Okay, so but I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. She's all by herself. She's in her own office.
A hypothetical new grad.
Yeah. She's afraid to start an extraction because what if she can't get it out? How does she? I don't want to start pulling this tooth because I don't know if I can get it all out. And so, what would you say to that? And how?
So is this
would
hypothetical new grad just bought a new clinic all by herself?
Yeah, this girl she bought a new office.
I would say don't buy a new office the day you finish dental school. You need to be mentored. A dental degree is a license to learn, and I have 2 female associates right now and a new male associate, male or female. I have had to help all of them pull teeth, but there's 2 things I tell them when they start. You please don't hesitate to ask me for help, and B, if you ask me for help and I come in and pull the tooth, you're still getting paid for it. I'm not taking your money for that because I don't want there to be a negative incentive for them to not ask for help. And every one of the new grads have had to help me, just like I needed help when I started in Whitehorse. You know, Dr. John Stern was a great mentor of mine, and he had my back if I needed it. You can't start on your own with nobody there. I mean, you need to know. You got to push yourself. And I tell my new grads, like, show me the x-ray before. I'll tell them, look, you're going to grab it. It's going to break in half. You're going to have to section it. Make sure you have the handpiece angle, the steeper angle than you think because it's mesially inclined. The mesial root will probably come out easily, and then you'll probably come get me for the distal root. When you've done it, 5,000 extractions, you know exactly how they're going to go. And they come back and say, well, you're right, the distal root won't come out. And what usually happens is I go in there and I just flick it out because they're just not comfortable putting as much force on it as you and I know we can do without breaking the jaw. They think they're going to break the jaw in half, but you just need to pry it a lot harder. But you have their back.
So
right?
who was this mentor that you talked about? You just mentioned his name for you.
Oh, Dr. John Stern.
Was he in your small town?
No, when I went up to Whitehorse in the Yukon.
Whitehorse. Isn't that where Yar Zucker?
Oh, no. He's in Red Deer.
Red Deer.
Yeah. Whitehorse is up north by Alaska.
Whitehorse, Red Deer. I was close, right?
Yeah, you're pretty close. For Canada,
I love Yar.
2,200 kilometers.
You call him Yar
away.
or Zuck?
I don't know him personally. I've never met him.
Yeah. But you know what? When I opened up my practice, like half the dentists in my area were like, mad, there's a new dentist. They didn't want any competitor, and they thought in fear and scarcity, and they're basically idiots. And the other half were like, come in, have a beer, whatever. Yeah. But big shout, and those guys did far better over the 30 years. But there was a guy, shout out to Bob Sundberg. Love him. I was 24. I opened up my own practice. I mean, once a month, I'd pull out the crown, and then I'd have to take the patient in his office and have him pull out the root, and he would always laugh, and he would always do it, and he was so sweet and adorable.
Yeah.
But
one of my best mentors in dental school, Dr. Blair Bennett, great dentist. He said to me one day, he said, "Derek, what's experience?" And I said, "It's doing everything right, Dr. Bennett." He said, "You're wrong. It's doing everything wrong once and learning from it." So, I tell my new grads, I said, "Look, you're going to have problems. You're going to need help. I've got your back. You'll still get paid for it if I come help you pull the tooth." The first month.
Zach, pull up those questions again.
The first month, I might help them with 5 extractions. The next month, it might be 4. After 6 months, they don't need my help much anymore. And then maybe, every 6 or 9 months, it might be a really hard one they need my help for. But they know that if they have a hard extraction, because I'm splitting my time between my 2 offices, they might plan this extraction, say, "Oh, don't book this except for a day when Derek's here, because I might need help on it." And they have that safety blanket that I've got their back. And it might be as simple as, like I said, I tell them how it's going to go. You're going to put the forceps on it. It's going to break. This root will come out easy. This one will probably snap. You'll have to remove some buccal bone. But just having that safety net there. So should a new grad buy a clinic with zero experience after dental school? I'd say not, unless, as you had, a mentor down the street that is happy for you to bring a patient down to help. I mean, learning is making mistakes. It's important to have somebody to help.
So you came to a fork on the road. And Yogi Bear says, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Most of my homies listening, they're going to have one office by themselves their whole life. That's the 80 percentile. Yeah. So then there's this 20% who decided it's really a rare behavior. You added a second location, and you took on associates. And most people who take on associates are in one location and took on an associate.
Yeah.
You took a second location and a 3 associate. Walk us through your journey, your mind. What made you? Did your dad do that? Did your brothers do that? Is
interestingly enough,
a genetic recessive gene thing that's expressing itself?
My father had 2 clinics his whole life because he worked in the small town I grew up, Viking, Alberta. There was never enough work to be 5 days a week, so he opened a second clinic a half hour away in another town, and he worked 2 days each, or 3 days in Viking, 2 days in Sedgwick. I opened a second clinic for family reasons. We wanted to raise our children closer to Angela's parents on the farm where she grew up. So I needed...
What do they farm? Small grains?
Cattle.
Cattle?
Yeah, they run cattle. So
for eating or dairy?
Eating. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, that's,
See, I'm vegan.
Yeah.
I only eat animals that only eat grass. So I'd love to come up there and eat one of them cows one day.
John Sachs raises wonderful cattle. He's so protective of them, he won't even sell us one for meat. He loves them too much.
So you did it just for family lifestyle?
Certainly. I needed a job. I opened a new clinic. It was as simple as that. And I didn't want to be living where I didn't have a job. And I would never recommend anybody open a new clinic without being independently wealthy or having a second or a first location that could support the new clinic. Admittedly, I built a very nice clinic because I could afford to, but also I had the income from the first clinic with the associates to finance it. I still, after 3 years, break even on the new clinic. I don't take a salary from it. It's still growing. We get 100 new patients a month. We're doing very well. We're very blessed, but I would not recommend new grads open a new clinic. I think that's financial suicide.
Yeah, and the other thing that makes sense,
even rural, it's financial suicide.
Say you go to a town and there's 4 dentists.
Yeah.
So and there's a practice for sale. Well, you buy that practice. You got existing staff, existing relationships. You got cash flow. Everything's going good.
Yeah.
But let's say no, you don't want to do that. You want to open up your own. Well, now the city has 5 dentists. And then the person that's selling that might be some 65-year-old tired, worn-out man. Mm-hmm. And who buys it? Some 30-year-old energized. So now you got looks to be like a sinking ship. Now it's a brand new cruise liner, and it's like, God, mergers and acquisitions are done in the S&P 500 every day. Mm-hmm. Dentists, like that town of 5, that's like, okay, there's old man McGregor selling his practice. And he's got 2,000 charts, and you're in a town of 5,000. Why on God's earth wouldn't you buy him, his staff, M&A activity? Because you do that M&A activity, you might be thinking, well, I basically bought a new patient for $100 a chart, and maybe I could have got him for $75. with direct mail or this or that, and I'm sitting there thinking, dude, eliminating some 30-year-old high-energy punk-ass kid who's going to crush it for 30 years, just eliminating that variable is 10 times more. That's why the Fortune 500 does. And I mean, I think the best M&A activity company in the world ever is obviously Cisco. And by the way, Henry Schein's a good one. Yeah. Cisco says, we're not going to have R&D and always invent the wrong technology too slow. His R&D is his checkbook. And when Cisco sees some startup think, damn, that was an awesome idea, and they're able to buy the company because now that guy didn't have to go public. He's already got his shares, and Cisco leaves the owner alone. You can stay in your town. You just make sure it all seamlessly works with Cisco. Yeah. Henry Schein, their CEO, Stan Bergman, in my lifetime of watching that guy, 36 M&A activities. Same thing. He buys Dentrix. It's in Provo. Leaves it in Provo. He don't give a shit. Just buys the people. Yeah. And I think of the 36 CEO companies that he bought, every one of them the CEO stayed for as long as the CEO wanted to stay. Yeah. And so I guess the question to you is, you're just how old are you?
36.
So you're 36. You got out in 2005. So 11 years out. Yeah. 36. Do you think, when you're 46, you'll own 3? When you're 56, you'll own 4?
No. I certainly don't think the road to riches is by increasing the number of dental clinics. The most money that I ever made, like personally from a clinic profit-wise, was before I hired associates.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, I hired associates. I hired associates for a reason. I can't be into. If I got to clone myself and put a Derek and Wainwright and a Derek and Rimbey 5 days a week, I would have done that. But I can't live my life in Rimbey with my wife and children and family support and be in Wainwright full time. So now I spend 2 or 3 days in each office, depending on what staff requirements are and what my associates are doing and who needs mentorship. So I have that flexibility. But honestly, like I said, my new clinic, I borrowed $3-4 million to set it up. It pays the loan. I don't draw a salary. I'm breaking even.
So that was for the land and the building and the equipment.
Admittedly, I built a very nice clinic, but I mean, it all works because I have.
So that was 3 to 4, or it had to be 3 or 4?
Oh, I put some of my own money into it. I borrowed $3 million, but it cost more than 3.
But did it cost 4?
Yeah.
And that's Canadian or U.S.?
Canadian.
What would that be in U.S.?
3.5, 3.2.
Oh, so it's pretty close right now.
Yeah.
That's a weird currency. I've noticed Australia and Canada and the United States, their currencies long-term swings against each other for the 30 years I've watched it.
I certainly think my profit margin is lower with associates. Obviously, we pay them 40% in Canada. That's pretty standard. So my profit margin 50%. I pay them 40. I make 10% off. It's pretty good. But if I did it myself, I'd make the whole 50.
Well, that's amazing. You pay them 40, and you're over at 50%. In America, the average associate's getting 25%.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference is between? Is it just because you can get someone to go rural in that small town for 25?
No, in the city as well, it's 40%. In Alberta, it's pretty standard. It's pretty. Everyone makes 40.
So Canada does have some distinctly different practice management cultures than America.
I can't speak. I don't know the American market. I really can't speak to the differences.
Well,
I'm not an expert.
like you're saying, the associates in Canada, even in the big cities, have 40%.
I would assume we have higher fees than you do, probably.
Huh?
This probably justifies it. But no, I certainly wouldn't recommend.
I hear this complaint from Canadian dentists. Tell me if this is true or not. They say, in America, if you're successful, I'm successful whether you're whatever, and it's cool in your culture. They say in Canada, if you start talking about you're successful, it's kind of looked down on.
No, I don't think anybody begrudges anybody's success. I think. No, I wouldn't say
you
that's
don't
true.
See that?
No,
okay.
No, I think showing off and being flashy is something that I'm not really into, but maybe it's more of a rural thing. I know a lot of farmers that have far more money than I do, and they drive 10-year-old pickup trucks, so that's cool. That's you know,
when I grew up in Kansas, and when I'm in Alberta, Saskatchewan, basically most of Canada reminds me, with the exception of Toronto. Montreal is a completely different bird. It almost reminds me more of French Paris, and Montreal reminds me more of Paris than it does Toronto. But the vast majority of Canada reminds me of the Midwest in Kansas. Very Kansas, Oklahoma, North and South Dakota, Nebraska. It's kind of that same culture.
Yeah, it's pretty laid back rural culture. I mean, as much as city people don't want to go rural kids like myself don't really want to live in the city, so I guess I'm kind of biased that I want to live there, but it's a very laid back way of life. There's 10 people in the drive-through at the coffee shop. It's on the front page of the paper. It's a traffic jam in town.
I've been arguing with public health people. I got halfway through my
master's. You argue with somebody?
I got halfway through my master's of public health. Whenever they talk about the underserved rural population, I always tell them, well, the only way you're going to solve that is in your acceptance class to freshmen. Yeah. If you want more people to go back to rural, in fact, what I told the dental school deans, if you would stop accepting students from the 117 largest cities, and you accepted only people that applied from towns of under 10,000, you'd solve the rural problem in a minute. Yeah. Do you agree that's the fundamental problem in public health for rural, is that the kid from Chicago isn't going to practice in Effingham?
There's always a rule of unintended consequences. I think that's why the government doesn't work, period. But yeah,
well said.
My alma mater, the University of Alberta, not when I went to school, but in subsequent years, they instituted a program where if you live more than, I think it's 100 or 125 kilometers away from the city or the university or a major center, they have 2 spots for rural students. And I think when my brother got into dental school, he couldn't quite claim that because we only grew up like 96 kilometers from Edmonton or something, but he still got in. But I think that would definitely help get dentists to go rural. But I mean, you would think that dentists that are going to borrow millions of dollars and buy a clinic in the city where there's no patient flow and they're working, 8 days a week, 25 hours a day, why wouldn't they go rural? My associate in Wainwright, like he goes to Edmonton on the weekends to see his friends. His friends bug him. They say, "Oh, what are you doing out in Wainwright? That must suck." He said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, you can't go to like parties and stuff." And he said, "How many parties and events and art openings and stuff did you go to in the last 5 days this week?" They're like, "Oh, none. I just bought groceries and went home." He said, "Exactly." He said, "I have lower housing. I have a 5-minute commute to work. Like I said, if there's 10 people in the drive-through at the coffee shop, it's a traffic jam that makes the front page of the paper." And he said, "I'm in the city in an hour and a half, and I come up here for the weekends." You can live in a small town and do that. The caveat, though, is you can't live in the city and commute out to the small town and take all the money in a sack up to the city, because small town people aren't stupid either. They want somebody that wants to be part of the community, right? You need to settle there.
You hear in California all the time, "Well, I wanted to live by the beach." Okay, when was the last time you actually physically went to the beach and put your foot in the water? Yeah. Oh, I didn't last year. Yeah. You didn't last year? Yeah. You could have practiced an hour inland from the,
But you could work 4 days a week, or you could work 3 weeks a month and take a week off and go to the beach if you wanted to during rural. You have that flexibility. We're so blessed as dentists that we're the master of our own destiny in a lot of cases, assuming you're busy and you can pay for it, but you can work as much or as little as you want once you pay your loan off, and you can make those life choices, but you need to be busy. And if you're struggling to keep your head above water in the cities, I don't get it. Why don't you go rural?
It's funny, demographics are just everything. I mean, when people say demographics don't matter, I always say, well, then move to Congo. Yeah. And then call me in 5 years. Yeah. Move to Afghanistan.
There's 65-year-old dentists that are just begging for associates that would be happy to sell their practice. If I was a new grad, I would phone, I'd open Google Earth, find a town that was like 2,000 to 5,000 people, somewhere close to where your family is that you want to settle. Call the dentist in that town. Say, "Hey, you thinking of retiring in a couple of years? You looking for an associate? I'd love you to mentor me for a couple of years. Know your staff, know your patients, know your systems, buy your clinic from you." I bet you half the people you phone today would be happy for that opportunity.
And one of the most overlooked features on Dental Town is the free classified ads. I looked this morning, there's like 6,050 free ads, but they're in 6 categories: looking for associate, or a dentist looking for associate, or a young dentist looking for a job, selling equipment. I can't believe every high price story they sell at a convention, you could buy used on the free classifieds for half the price by somebody who bought it and realized it wasn't all that and just wants to get rid of it.
I hope nobody that comes to your conventions listen to this.
I know, that's why I call it Dentistry Uncensored. It's tough because, like I have a magazine.
Yeah.
Most magazines, the people sit there and say, okay, I'll buy an ad if you print this article exact. That's what I have to compete against.
Yeah.
Whereas we got 5 dentists, me, Jacoby, Goldstein, Tim Berg, and like, no, homie, that ain't how we play. That is propaganda. That is bullshit. Yeah. We ain't printing any of that stuff. And then I say things on Dentistry Uncensored all day long, and then I get complaints. We advertised with him, and he just said, look what he just said. And myself's like, that's Howard. I mean, we're going to tell you what because I believe if I totally respect you, I'm going to tell you what I think. Not what you want to hear. I'm not going to fluff it up. But back to associates, though. I hear so many dentists say the most money they ever made was when they just did it themselves, and they got all this associate stuff, and it was a lot of noise, a lot of drama, but not any extra net income.
No, I agree with that entirely. My situation is such that my associates serve my purpose right now, and as I said, I'm very blessed to have them. I have wonderful associates and wonderful staff, but I went from one clinic with 2 assistants, 2 hygienists, and 2 receptionists. So I had 6 staff and myself, to now I have over 20 staff, 3 associate dentists working for me. Every time my phone rings, I'm like, oh, what now? I mean, someone's is sick, or their schedule changes, or their husband got transferred and they're quitting, but I mean, that's the nature of the beast. I don't begrudge that at all. That's just my life now, and I really enjoy managing my businesses. I like that.
You like the business.
I do. I think there's a saying, I didn't come up with this, I heard it years ago. There's professionals who happen to find themselves in business, and there's business people who happen to be professionals. I think I'm the latter, not the former. I very much enjoy business. I enjoy running it. It's my hobby. It's my life. My wife is a wonderful mother. She runs our house. I run our business. It works great. And like I said, I've got great staff, but your staff, your number one asset. You can't do without them. I don't think I could pay them any higher compliments than that. You can't mistreat your staff. You can't expect them to do things you wouldn't do. You can't tell them to work evenings or weekends if you're not doing it. You got to pay them fairly. You got to be accommodating. I hope I keep my staff my whole life. They're wonderful, and my associates also have been great. But it is a headache, and as you said, the most profitability I ever had, the lowest overhead is when I was by myself. But as you get older and you have kids, you don't want to work full time either. So your life changes. That's why partnership's hard. They never work out.
How is advertising different in a small town? Because I'm thinking, if you're in a town of 6,000, you're a town of 2,000, is advertising different there than in the big cities like Calgary to Alberta or Edmonton?
I would assume so. I've never owned a clinic in Calgary or Edmonton. My greatest decision when I built my new office in Rimbey, and I think anybody considering if you're going to build a new clinic or relocate, if you're going to build a new clinic, hopefully you have a really busy old clinic to move across the street to. I think that would be ideal. But location, visibility. I bought this big lot, and it's a downhill slope, and closer to the highway. The main thoroughfare into and out of town is 18 feet below the highest point. And my architect said, are you sure you want to build down there? We could put it at the top of the hill. It's 500 feet off the highway. You wouldn't have to pump septic uphill. It'd be way cheaper, no road going down, much cheaper. I said, no, we're going to put it down by the highway. And we're going to build a really nice building, very architectural. We're going to spend way more money putting peaked roofs on it instead of a square box. And I'm going to put a really nice sign out. I got a sign professionally designed, 18 feet tall, got my logo on it. I had the logo done, phone number on it. 9 out of 10 patients that come to my clinic, their intake form says, how do you hear about us? Google, Facebook, Yellow Pages, word of mouth, radio. I do all that, but saw the office driving by. And I told my architects after a year of this, I said, this is why I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on architecture fees. I said, if you ever have clients say, this isn't worth it, you can tell them, like, I know it's subjective, but good architecture and good visibility will pay for itself. If you have a nice looking office in a good location that people see it and they think, oh, that looks like a nice dental office. It looks really nice. If their tooth breaks 3 years from now, they're going to say, oh, I'm going to call that dentist. I drive by it every day. He's got a really nice office. He's probably good. right? If you would have been cheaper to put your office in a square cinder block in an industrial area, but you're only going to build clients through word of mouth or Facebook. But I mean, you think Facebook works really well? I don't know, I don't. But visibility is key. Word of mouth, great. It just takes 30 years to build a clinic by word of mouth.
It's funny how Ray Kroc said that.
That's a great movie, The Founder.
1950.
You seen that?
And he spent all that money on the arches, the land, the deal, because he said if you have the look, you have the location, you don't have to market the rest of your life. Everybody knows where you're at. Everybody knows where you just do it once and right. Yeah. Location, architect, signage. Yeah. And a lot of the millennials, I think all humans have bias. I see this with millennials. They I look at people who crunch the numbers in marketing and they say, okay, direct mail, about 1% return. Yeah. And when you pay for them, when you do the cost of direct mail, the postage, the 1% return, number one cash cow. But see, millennials, they don't believe in direct mail. They don't believe in cutting down a tree, making a flyer. When they go get their mail, they fucking hate it all. They want to throw it away. And they're on Facebook 10 times a day. Yeah. So they just want to do Facebook ads because that's what they love. That's their bias. Yeah. What do you think's better? Old school signage, direct mail, or new age Facebook on the smartphone?
Well, I guess if you are targeting people that don't own cars, that don't drive by your office, maybe Facebook's the way to go. But in my experience,
targeting people that don't own cars and don't drive by your office, that'd be kids, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, millennials maybe and live in cities. My demographic in my practice is rural people. Everyone drives. Everyone has a truck. They drive to get groceries. They drive by my office. In my experience, signage and visibility is number one. In both my clinics, that's been the case.
Your building and signage.
Yes. You must have a nice looking building, presentable, attractive, good signage. It's an investment that keeps paying for itself. You don't have to pay the signage company every month like you have to do Facebook or the newspaper or the radio. One and done, like Ray Kroc said, I guess.
I agree. And what after building and signage, what would be your next marketing best?
I think the newspaper still is very good, at least in my town. I actually sponsor the photo of the week in my newspaper. It's always on the first page on the inside. It's a photo that somebody takes and it's got my logo right underneath it. And people always look there because it's got local kids or local cows or hay bales or owls. And it's funny because new patients always come in and tell my receptionist, how does Dr. Nordstrom find the time to take all those photos? Because they think I'm doing it, but it's users. Let's go it's submitted by the readers.
And the big money decision. She thinks she has to have a CEREC machine to provide customer service, same day dentistry, but it's $150,000. Yeah. And she's got student loans. Do you think she needs to drop $150 in a CEREC machine because a same-day crown is a really big thing that the consumer is asking for? Do you do that?
No. I plan to get a CEREC machine eventually. I really like the technology. I've been to their courses. I think it's a wonderful technology that I'm very happy with the result. But I don't have one yet. I simply can't afford it yet. It's a lot of money. But I've never once had a patient walk in, say to me, can you do this crown in 2 hours? And if I say no, they walk out.
I know.
I've had people say, I had the very first patient ever about a month ago say, do you do those crowns in the office with that machine? I said, no, I hope to get one next year, but I don't do them right now. The machine's $180,000 or whatever. She said, oh, I was just wondering. I said, well, unfortunately, you have to wear a temporary for 2 weeks, but we don't need to freeze you usually to glue it in. It takes 10 minutes. She's like, oh, that's fine.
I know. The only two questions I get is how much is it and are you going to hurt me?
Yeah.
And you said you've never had anyone walk in and say, can I?
I've now had one person ask me, do you do that? And I said, no, here's why. And I'd like to eventually, but I simply can't afford it right now.
And with my lab guy, if they really need it back, since I never ask. Yeah. If they get them on, sometimes they get on the phone and Jan will say, well, if you do it now, we can't get it back till tomorrow. Yeah. But if you come in tomorrow at 8 a.m., we'll get it back at 5 a.m. just for you. And then,
I've had a couple cases where I've personally driven it up to Edmonton to my lab and they do it overnight and get it back the next day if the patient's going on a 2-month trip and they just broke a tooth or something. I mean, yeah, you never ask for it. And then when you need it, they'll do it because you're a good client. It's not a big deal. Rarely, you don't have somebody that comes in and says they're getting married in 3 hours and they just broke their front tooth. I mean,
I would tell them that's a sign from God and not to get married. I'd say God is begging you to cancel. this future alimony payment.
Yeah.
And he gave you the warning. So then here's another question. These young kids come out of school. Is there any things that you think are a great return on investment to learn? Do you think they should learn Invisalign, place implants, sleep apnea? The list goes on and on. You said earlier at the beginning you like basics. Yeah. Would you think they should do molar endo continuums? Where would you tell her is their best ROI coming out of school?
I would probably say molar endo courses. I think with my experience with associates, the thing they're most uncomfortable with is endo, specifically molars, simply because if you do an endo a week or every couple days, you're doing it weekly, that's great. But, say if you do 5 fillings a day, you did 25 this week, you did 100 this month. If you do 1 molar endo a week, how long does it take you to do 100 of them? You work, 40 weeks a year? It takes you 2.5 years to do 100 molar endos. So you're 3 years into practice before you did as many fillings as you did your first week. So it just takes time to build up that experience in endos. So honestly, if every associate I had, if I could sign them up for a week-long endo course, I think that would be ideal. That's what I work mostly with.
We put on Dental Town put on the best endo online CE there is. I mean, we have 3 different endo. One is 19 hours long. Yeah. One is 20 hours long. The guy who did the 20-hour long, literally, it was his hobby. He literally spent $1 million video filming all of his root canals for a decade. Yeah. And then edit it all down to some deal. I mean, you can learn endo faster on Dental Town Online C than anywhere.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's freakishly good. Yeah. But I think the problem is their fear. And I got in a lot of trouble by some endodontists in Canada saying this. One of them tried to get me in big trouble. What I said was this, and I'm not taking back my words. In my 30 years, I have never pulled any wisdom teeth where the patient came back and said, I miss those wisdom teeth. I can't chew a hamburger or I can't eat.
Well, I'd agree with you on that.
On second molars, I've lectured in lots of countries where if there's not room for ortho, they don't pull the 4 first bite customers. They pull the 4 second molars. Yeah. And in my 30 years of dentistry...
You know Richard Litt?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I did my ortho training. He feels differently.
Yeah. But I have only had one person a decade miss a second molar. They came in, they had a second molar, they didn't have the money, root canal, we pulled it. And then I see him all the time and I say, do you miss that second molar? They go, you know what's weird is I don't miss it at all. So they're afraid to do a second molar endo. And I say, well, if you do a second molar endo and it doesn't work out, you can always refer to an endodontist.
Or give them their money back and pull it.
Or you can give them your money back and pull it because, again, one person a decade misses a second molar. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree with that. I have patients that come in with gross cavities on the 7s, and I always tell them, look, here's your options. You can spend $3,500 on a root canal and a crown, or I could pull it for you. I said, of all the people...
Is the 7 a third molar or second molar?
Second molar.
Okay.
So in Canada, the 7 is a second molar. I say, look, you can give me a whole bunch of money to fix this tooth. If you look at the bite wing, you only chew on the front half of it. And I said, of all the people that I see in this situation, half of them save it. They're the ones that usually have insurance. Half of them pull it. I said, you probably won't miss it. That's a lot of money. You can go on a nice holiday or buy a new TV or something. And half of them pull it and half of them save it. And I'm fine pulling it too.
Now, is there a demographic? Do more women save it and more men pull it because of
I'm not sure. I can't speak to that.
Sure. But see, that's another thing. We sell the invisible. It's a game of trust. You know what trusting it is when a dentist says, I don't care what you do. You can give me $3,500 for a root canal and a crown. Is that about it? Yeah. And how much for the extraction?
143.
You can give me 143. We'll pull this thing. Only one person a decade misses it. Or you give me 3,500. I'll do the root canal and the crown. That just reeks of I trust this guy. But he couldn't care less if I was going to give him 3,500 or 150.
But if you're working,
that's integrity.
But they usually come in on an emergency. You've worked them in anyways. You pull the tooth right now and you've made money that you wouldn't have planned on making anyways because they're in pain. You don't have to book an hour and a half or 2 hours for an endo and take your day up. And you're busy every day anyways doing rural dentistry. It's not a make work project. If you were sitting there at 8 a.m., and I've heard stories of new clinics in the city, they turn the lights off when patients aren't there to save money because they don't do anything all day.
Oh my God.
But me, I'm booked 3 months ahead. I work 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Every day is full. Somebody comes in with the second molar, there's a pain on it. They walk in, I fit them in because they're in pain on a Friday before a long weekend. Pulling it's easy. I'm happy to pull it. I'm not trying to convince them to pull it, but the truth is, if you want a root canal, I'll book you 2 weeks later and we'll do it. But it doesn't matter to me because I'm busy anyways. And that doesn't mean they're wrong to pull it or wrong to not save it. It's whatever they want. The right answer is what the patient wants. You got to tell them the truth. You're right. They won't miss it. $3,500 is a lot of money. If they have insurance, they're fully covered. Their husband has insurance as well. They got dual coverage. They don't really want to lose a tooth. That's fine. I can do second molar endos in a rural practice, but you got to be comfortable doing it. So you got to take the courses, and perhaps Dental Town's the place to go.
Dental Town has the lowest cost online CE course to learn endo, period. But what I think about it is, it's same thing. When the patient thinks you're trying to sell, they repel. When they don't sense you're trying to sell, they don't repel. And I do the same thing with a cavity. I say, well, you have a cavity, and it's going to be a $250 filling. I recommend we do that today because I'm looking at your chart, and you haven't been in here in 3 years. Yeah. Your past behavior predicts your future behavior. Well, you won't come back for 3 years. You won't make it 3 years. Yeah. So that'll grow into the nerve, and then you'll need a $2,500 U.S. root canal bill and crown, but you don't have insurance. You don't have that. Yeah. So then you're going to get an extraction, which is $250. The filling today is $250. Yeah. The extraction 3 years from now is $250. I don't care what you do. I don't care. But I've been doing this a long time. If you haven't been in for 3 years and you leave today and do nothing, you're going to be back and it's going to be a toothache, and you tell me you don't have money today, but you'll have to find the $250 then because you won't be able to sleep at night. Yeah. And you're going to give me your credit card. I'm going to pull the tooth for $250. So what I recommend, give me your credit card. Let's do the filling for $250 today. But again, I don't care what you do. Just let Jan know what you want to do.
Yeah. I think the no pressure, here's your options, take your pick is the way to go. That's how I run my business. I mean, people can come in with the swollen face and I say, look, you have a terrible infection. It's going to get worse. You need to pull it. I don't want to pull it. Say, fine, have a good day.
Final question. That was the fastest hour ever. That was an amazing deal. I'm just wondering, is America getting so crazy that Canadians are going to build a wall to keep crazy ass Americans out? Do we now have the official craziest president for the U.S. that you've seen in America in your lifetime?
There's a lot about Donald Trump that repels a lot of people, and he's definitely a unique individual. But I do support a lot of the things he says too. So it's I like American. I like all my American friends, and I don't think we should build a wall.
Your President Trudeau?
Well, no, he wants to really disrupt NAFTA, and a lot of Canadian companies are now moving to the States for the Buy American thing. So that's really not great for us.
Well, actually, Silicon Valley's moving to Canada because 15% of their programmers were all from Asia. Yeah. And now their Asian programmers are afraid to fly in out. And in the programming centers in Phoenix, the ones I know personally in my office, they say they're moving programming to Vancouver, British Columbia.
It goes both ways, I guess.
Because they're afraid of the visas.
Yeah, I think trade protectionism is maybe a good thing globally, but maybe not a good thing for North America. I mean, Canadian and U.S., we've been good friends for many years and will continue to be so, and we're neighbors. And I think, protecting ourselves together from, Asia is trade-wise is maybe more important than protecting America from Canada.
So are you still mad at me from your hockey team moving down to Phoenix, the Phoenix Coyotes?
No, I'm not. I'm over that now.
You're over that now?
Yeah.
That's a great team. They almost built their new stadium right 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
But it turns out it was all a ploy to get the old guys to redo a new one. So they picked a lot, they got plans, it was all this. And when the old stadium finally realized they're going to move from Glendale to Tempe, then they renegotiated their contract, and I think the whole thing was just as...
I think we could probably spend another hour talking about team sports, financing, and infrastructure projects. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of it, but we just built a new arena in Edmonton. It's a very nice arena in the downtown. Has really benefited from it, but cost a lot, so time will tell.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for spending an hour with me.
You're very welcome.
So much.
Very enjoyable.
So
Thanks
much.
for the opportunity, Howard.